time to talk about texting. So, texting, when it comes to dating, can be very confusing. What I love about texting is it's a great way to reveal someone's personality and their flirting style. It's also immediate gratification. And I mean, who doesn't love immediate gratification at times? It's a way to spontaneously communicate. The problem is it can also be a very passive form of communication, which actually can be a good and a bad. So the good is that you don't have to invest so much time into each message, right? You can let someone know that you are thinking about them. You know, you text saying, hey, just thinking about you, wanted to let you know, or hope you're having a great day. You can also let them know that you're confirming dinner without having to commit to a 10-minute phone call and interrupting their day. You can flirt. You can engage in witty banter, and you can really get to know someone's off-the-cuff personality, like what they're thinking when they're not filtering themselves. You can gather a lot about that off-the-cuff personality. So what do you gather? Well, if they're flirtatious, obviously, if they're fun, if they're uptight, if they're introspective, if they are intellectual or witty. You can also pick up if they're combative or narcissistic. Do they never ask about you? Is it always all about them all the time? It's never, hey, thanks for asking about my day. How's your day? Those are things that you really need to watch out for. So when do you begin texting? Well, after you've pre-qualified them, which means you've asked very strategic questions. These are things that I coach my clients on. And you do those questions on the phone and via email. And you want to make sure that you have a date set up first before you start texting. Be aware of your tone. What you might think is fun or witty might actually be bitchy or crass. Remember that texts are completely stripped of tone and facial expressions, no matter how many emoticons you include, okay? What you're trying to put across might not come across. Texts also can be passive-aggressive. So while texting is a passive mode of communication, it doesn't mean that they should be passive-aggressive. So you really need to make sure that you think before you send, right? You don't want to send something that might sound nasty or rude or short. A good thing to do is to read it to yourself first and see how it comes across. You also need to be aware of the rule of thumb. You don't want your texts to be longer than a thumb, okay? You want to follow his lead. So how long are his texts? How often does he text? What style is he texting in? Doesn't mean you have to do exactly the same thing, but similar. You don't want him to send a one-liner and you send a 15-liner, okay? You also need to be aware of timing. So who texts first? At what time of day are you texting? Is it a busy time of day and you're asking these deep questions and they're in the middle of a meeting? You also want to be aware of your length of the text to each other, back and forth. Is it something that makes sense to be sent in a text, or maybe it's a phone call? Now the sexy factor. How sexy do you get? Well, you can get pretty sexy over texts, but you need to be careful. This is why I say you want to make sure that you have a date first set, because you could actually ruin the potential of a relationship by getting too sexy first, by making him think that you're a certain way that you're not, which brings me to photos. Is it okay to send photos? It is, yeah. Photos are actually a great thing to send, but you don't want to send photos that are too sexy. You can send some kind of sexy photos, that's okay. And you can also send in the moment photos, because that shows that you're real. It shows who you are. It helps to both show and tell your personality. And it shows that you're not a catfish, right? Which is someone who is fake. They're putting out the wrong person. So sending those texts, hey, I want to see, what are you doing? Oh, you're having a great time, let me see. Now, you're not going to do it in a way that makes them seem like you're being needy, so you're going to send a couple of photos first, and that's okay. Think about texting as basically like tweeting, right? When people tweet, they find everything that they're doing exciting. So they tweet, yay, I just did this, yay, I just did that. Now, that can be obnoxious, but start looking at what is interesting in my day. What makes sense for me to text about? You want to show that you're an interesting person, that you have things going on, because that also builds up the excitement before your date. If you don't feel like you have anything going on in your life, then you should watch my video, which is Get a Life. before you get a boyfriend, because you need to have a life, you need to have interests and hobbies and passions, and those are the things that you are going to express in your texts. So please subscribe, because I know that you want more of this information. So subscribe and like it if you do.